stuff like that, that if I just stayed with the experience, not brushing it off, not rushing on to the next thing.
จากที่เคยอ่านหนังสือของคุณริกมานะฮะก็สังเกตเห็นว่าเขาพยายามจะบอกเรื่องราวของพุทธศาสนาเนี่ยให้กับชาวตะวันตกได้ทราบโดยที่สามารถทำให้เกิดความเปลี่ยนแปลงขึ้นอย่างรวดเร็วได้ด้วยซ้ำนะฮะแล้วก็พอได้ลองถามเขาว่าถ้าเกิดว่าสัญชาตญาณของเราเนี่ยมันทำให้เราเป็นทุกข์เนี่ยเราจะปรับตัวหรือว่าแก้นิสัยในการที่จะปรับสัญชาตญาณของเราได้ยังไงนะฮะคุณริกก็บอกว่าอาจจะเริ่มต้นขึ้นจากการที่เราหัดซึมซับประสบการณ์ดีๆในชีวิตในแต่ละวันนะครับแล้วก็มีความเมตตาต่อตัวเองให้มากขึ้น
Our negative experiences stick to us, but the positive ones very often just wash off it. That increases our suffering, and it makes it harder to do bhavana. Bhavana being the cultivation of wholesome. You know, in wise effort, that element of the Eightfold Path, obviously, as you know, wise effort means reducing what's negative and increasing what's positive. I think of it as pulling weeds or planting flowers, in the garden of the mind and therefore the brain. Well, how do we grow those flowers or pull the weeds given the negativity bias? That to me is one really good example where brain science is actually quite helpful. It tells us new things. And as a point, what people can do if they want to grow more flowers is to deliberately, I call it taking the good. In other words, when they're having a simple positive experience, or when they can deliberately create a positive experience, stay with it for 10 or 20 seconds in a row. As simple as that. Not out of grasping or clinging, but rather out of kindness to yourself, because you deserve kindness too. We are supposed to have metta and karuna, loving kindness and compassion for all beings. Well, all beings includes you and me. So out of kindness to ourselves, we stay with it, but we also stay with it to bring it in, so that we gradually put these powerful good experiences inside our brain, so that we take them with us wherever we go, so we can draw upon them as resources to help ourselves in ordinary ways in life, and also for spiritual practice, for awakening. And because they're inside us, we don't feel so hungry for them out there. They're in us. So our happiness is increasingly unconditional. It's not based on external conditions. Because increasingly, because we're like making ourselves more and more like a sponge, we absorb the positive experiences, so we take them with us wherever we go. For one, there's of course much research that is not about the brain, it's just psychology, period. That when people do many different kinds of practices, whether it's mindfulness practice or metta practice, or go see a therapist, or read a good book, or to listen to your mother, do what she says once in a while at least. Anyway, when people do these things, they learn and grow. So that's always been understood, and people can describe really healing from and reducing negative experiences. Additionally, there is more and more understanding of how that actually can happen in the brain. For example, you can see that people, after taking a class perhaps, or after doing practices, even just 8 weeks of mindfulness training, there's increased activation of the left prefrontal cortex compared to the right prefrontal cortex, which associates with more positive feelings. In part because the left prefrontal cortex puts the brakes on, it dials down, it reduces negative emotions. So you build up the brakes on the negative, like in a car, you have brakes, you like stop the bad thing. Well, if you increase that in the brain, you're going to have more happiness. You're going to have more good things. Well, 8 weeks of simple, mindfulness training can create more of that left prefrontal activation, for example. You can also see that simply labeling your experience, like sort of Mahasi-style practice, Burmese-style practice, noting practices, or even very lightly just noting, oh, afraid, or sad, or angry. Just that alone, studies show, calms down the alarm bell of the brain, which is the amygdala. The amygdala becomes less active when we simply bring words to our own experience. We're not trying to change it, just bringing words to it calms down the alarm bell of the brain. And there are many other examples where people are realizing that mental activity, ranging from formal meditative practice to simply having good conversations with your friends from the heart, will actually change your brain for the better.
It doesn't mean we lie to ourselves, right? Like somebody hit me and I said, oh, that's okay.
Right, no.
It's not like that, right?
No. You're asking to me, you're speaking to a very big question, and maybe I'll say it like this. I think there are three great ways to engage the mind. The first great way is to be with what's there and to just be honest about it, to feel the feelings, to open to your experience, to be mindful of, to just simply see it without trying to change it. Just accept it and see it. It is what it is. The second great way, and in Buddhism it's wise effort, as I said, is to let go of what's negative, is to reduce what's negative. And the third great way is to increase what's positive. It's in English, I would call that let be, let go, let in. Or to think of a garden, in the first way we see our garden, we just accept it, it is what it is. Second way we pull the weeds, third way we plant the flowers. All are really important. I think the most important is the first way, because you cannot always pull weeds or plant flowers in the garden of your mind, but you can always see it. You can always be with it. So if someone hurts us, they treat us badly, maybe they're a bad government, or maybe it's a person in our life is doing a bad thing to us or to someone we care about, we can see that, and it's natural to have strong reactions to it. So we see the strong reactions, we see the situation, then we try to let go of what's negative. Maybe we're too angry, even though it's understandable that we're angry, but it does not help. The Buddha said getting angry with others is like throwing hot coals with bare hands. Both people get burned, us and them. We can still be strong without being angry. We can be very firm without being lost in anger, for example. And then in the third step, we try to bring in positive things. We try to awaken in ourselves strength, let's say. We try to awaken in ourselves compassion for the other person who hurt us, even though we think they did a bad thing, maybe. We try to bring up a sense of others who support us, and we try to maybe even also let it sink in when we're all done with this whole situation, let's say, to let it sink in what the lessons of it are, including maybe a good feeling about ourselves, that we were strong when we had to be. All of that for me is okay, and all of that is changing the brain for the better.
พอได้คุยกับคุณริกเนี่ยเมื่อมองในด้านของวิวัฒนาการ